Damien Chazelle's been on quite a tear in Hollywood with a bunch of great work on some cool films. Whiplash, love that. 10 Cloverfield Lane. La La Land, absolutely extraordinary movie. I love that film. Also The First Man, starring Ryan Gosling. Very cool look at the Apollo astronauts going into outer space. But here he is back with his new love letter to Hollywood. It's called Babylon. And this almost works as an interesting counterpoint to a lot of the work that was in La La Land, which celebrated the movie musical, but also the insane class system that exists across Hollywood. Babylon deals with the idea of the silent film era fading as the talkies are coming into play, and how Hollywood dealt with these massive technological changes. And it looks at this from the viewpoint of a bunch of different characters. Brad Pitt plays this superstar celebrity from the world of silent film who's made tons and tons of money, enjoys going to these out-of-control parties and just drinking himself to oblivion and having terrible relationships with women. And Margot Robbie is at first playing this up-and-comer that's really wants to be a part of Hollywood, sees herself as a star, fashions herself to become a star, and then eventually does become a star through the course of the story in Babylon. And she is paired up with this other guy that has been on the outskirts and working for different factions in Hollywood, but really wants to be on film sets and be a part of the movie world, played by Diego Calva, who does some really fantastic work in here, especially because this is one of his first big, Hollywood experiences, and he's up against some massive superstars. There's lots of other cameos and interesting characters scattered throughout this. Gene Smart is terrific in the movie, and Tobey Maguire's got a very memorable part in this film as well. And the movie gives us a little bit of everything. We've got a lot of debauchery, like full-on orgy sequences happening in crazy Hollywood parties. We've got people falling over drunk. We've got people crying their eyes out, and Margot Robbie doing these insane wide-eye spin dance things that she seems to do in almost every movie she's in. I'm getting a little exhausted by that, quite frankly. Meanwhile, Diego Calva's character is learning the ropes and really trying to understand the mechanics and how the system of Hollywood kind of works. All of the backstage deals, the way that people are thrown in front of the camera and ripped unceremoniously from in front of the camera. And we also get a sense of what the studio system from this kind of heightened, insane perspective might have been like during the heyday of the silent film era. And you'll see the camera pan across a whole bunch of different sets from different time periods and people in outlandish and definitely not politically correct costumes. And we'll just see the madness of the machine of Hollywood to just make all of these pictures as quickly as possible to satiate the fervor for new content. It kind of echoes a little of the YouTube generation too. And then we see things starting to change through the course of the movie. We hear murmurs that talkies are starting to come into play, and it's interesting to see what that means to these different characters and the executives that are on their periphery that are kind of shadowy and kind of shady, but they're running the business of Hollywood. Gene Smart plays this character that is reporting on all of this craziness, this kind of proto-gossip queen that understands what this is going to mean for everybody. And there's a lot that I really dug about the way that all of these pieces were coming together. And clearly Chazelle is trying to honor some of the actual history and the myth-making that Hollywood has been so proficient at and prolific with over the years. So it has this interesting, shiny veneer, even though there's really dark stuff that bubbles up in this picture as well. Some gross underground elements in here that are quite shocking. And the movie works hard to shock you. I was also kind of scratching my head hearing the score throughout the movie because it felt like big chunks were echoing music pieces from La La Land, as if this was the early prequel tennis hit back to La La Land, like across time, which was kind of interesting as well. But the movie is absolutely not a musical, even though there are some really heavy, musically influenced pieces in this film that look like a musical, and so much stagey work in here as well. And there's also this bigger meta kind of story that's happening that I caught on to early in the picture because I'm a huge fan of the piece that it's referencing, and I don't want to spoil that. But at the end of the picture, the movie kind of describes everything that it's been trying to do in this really weird, obnoxious wrap-up, and it's unbelievably indulgent and over the top and just insane. It feels like the movie is trying to be all movies towards the end of the picture, and it's like trying to one-up the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You know how Peter Jackson had such a tough time figuring out how to just close the book and move on? I mean, those movies were incredible, but it just like the ending just went on and on and on. And I felt a little bit like that when I was watching this. And I also didn't like, at the end of this picture, feeling like the mystery was revealed, you know? The influence was right up there on screen for us to see. I guess because I felt like the movie had a special quality not making that reference, not taking that extra leap, and letting me just imagine that's what Chazelle was trying to put together and piece together for us. And then he goes and clearly says, yep, that's what I was trying to do. And so I just feel like it's the movie clapping at itself at the end and just sort of celebrating how smart it is and how clever it is and what a big statement it's making. And it killed it for me. Like, it just made the movie just feel so obnoxious and pretentious. And I just walked out of the movie just shaking my head thinking, what the hell, man? What did I just watch there? That was ridiculous. I didn't love all aspects of the movie all the way through, but I was certainly admiring its cinematic qualities, and the work from Brad Pitt was pretty good, and the work that Margot Robbie was doing was pretty good. Diego Calva actually was quite impressive in this picture, and it looked cool, but I don't think it's Chazelle's best work by any means. I think he was doing much more exciting stuff with Whiplash and especially with La La Land. I do admire the tenacity and I admire the ambition of this picture, and I think this is a wonderful filmmaker with incredible talent and huge reach, you know, like he goes for it, and I want to celebrate him to continue to do that. But yeah, this was not my favorite 3 hours in the Cineplex over the course of 2022. I'm glad that I saw it. I was curious about it, but ultimately it left me feeling a little bit disappointed, especially that wacko ending. I'm going to give Babylon a 7 out of 10.